Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to be here today to participate in this panel on cinematic representations of Bangladesh's independence. It's a great honor to be also invited to chair this session at IAGS, and I thank the organizers for that. I'd also like to welcome our four speakers here today. Fahmida Akhter, Nainika Mukherjee, Naeem Mohammed, and Zakir Hussain Raju. And also, I just want to mention that our participation here today is in some way a recognition as well of the 50th year of Bangladesh's independence. So in that way, it's fitting that we should be talking about our films here in this session, as many of them address the 1971 war. The contradictions and complexity of 1971 continue to reverberate within Bangladesh, as many of the debates at that formative moment remain unresolved and have been clouded in the political turmoil of the post-independence period. It's no wonder then that 1971 is revisited again and again in Bangladesh cinema. So today our speakers will explore different aspects of the representation of the war, in particular looking at some of the films produced by Tarek Masood and myself, namely Muktir Gaan, also known as Song of Freedom in English, Muktir Kota, or Words of Freedom, and Mati Roina, or The Clay Bird. So I would like to call upon Fahmida Akhter. Hopefully, she's been having trouble with her connection, but hopefully she'll be able to present, and she may as well need some help with her slides. So Fahmida, I'm now going to assign you as presenter.
Thank you, Catherine. My paper explores the interpretive framework of the documentary film Muktir Gaan, Song of Freedom, made in 1995, in representing history and gender. Muktir Gaan, a feature-length documentary film on the liberation war of Bangladesh directed by Tarek Masood and Catherine Masood, is regarded as the most watched documentary film in the South Asian history. This non-fiction film subverts many cliches of war narratives, particularly in bringing the unrepresented experience of women in war discourse by depicting images and actions of real women. Along with pre-existing newsreel and archival footage of the liberation war from various sources, this documentary mostly incorporates the footage of 1971 shot by an American filmmaker, Leah Levin. Levin footage was never seen before by the Bangladeshi audience and was left in the basement of his house in New York City for nearly 20 years before it was praised by the Masoods in 1990. The 20 hours 16mm footage recorded by Levin mostly contained the stimulating experience and journey of a cultural troupe during the war. Bangladesh Mukti Songram Shilpi Sangstha, the mobile singing cultural troupe, which consisted of young middle-class Bengali male and female singers, traveled through refugee camps in a truck. They entered into the liberated zone, crossing the border, singing inspiring nationalist songs to the refugees and freedom fighters. Muktir Gaan mainly reveals the journey and performance of this cultural troupe during the war in a non-fictional context. The film became the most popular documentary in Bangladesh on the theme of the liberation war. Its unprecedented popularity helped the film to be regarded as the most significant film among all genres of Bangladeshi war film, as it shapes the public perception of the 1971 war most powerfully. For narrating the past, the film both engages fact and fictionalization. Documentary as a genre, which is widely expected to be fact-based and requires authenticity, accuracy, and authority, cannot produce the actual past. Stella Brazzi, a documentary theorist, writes, quote, "Documentary has always implicitly acknowledged that the document at its heart is open to reassessment, reappropriation, and even manipulation," unquote, Brazzi 12. Bill Nichols also characterizes documentary by its potential to make representation or argument about historical reality. Thus, documentary is also a cinematic construction. It contains both fictional techniques and factuality, even when it incorporates archival images or found footage. Therefore, in order to examine Muktir Gaan, a documentary film mostly based on archival and found footage, my concern is not to find the level of truth or falsehood of the past depicted in the film. I would rather concentrate on looking at its interpretive framework. How does the film incorporate pre-existing footage from various sources, including archive, for interpreting the past? I aim to unpack the politics and aesthetics of the war documentary film Muktir Gaan, contextualizing it as it intersects with the socio-political context. I also probe its strategies of gender representation. Muktir Gaan is not a melodrama, nor a fiction film, as I said earlier. Despite this, it appeals to the Bangladeshi viewers, particularly in the context of 1995, when the film was released with deep emotion of nostalgia, leaving them to shed a few tears. The film was cherished by the audience as a ritual of collective remembering of the history of the Liberation War, which has been suppressed by the institutional efforts during the military rule from 1975 to 1990. After the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the first president of the then Prime Minister of Bangladesh in August 1975, Bangladesh underwent 15 years of military dictatorship. During this period, the country was ruled first by General Ziaur Rahman from 1975 to 1981, and then by Lieutenant General Hussein Mohammad Ershad from 1982 to 1990. To secure and legitimize their dictatorial rules, both Zia and Ershad promoted the growth of Islamic fundamentalism. They forged a new sense of Muslim identity for Bangladeshis in which the Islamic religious identity prevailed over the Bengali identity. This period from 1975 to 1990, both in reality and in film, was guided by the state-promoted selected amnesia about the Liberation War. Am I visible or my slides are invisible? Sorry.
Your okay. Slides are visible and it's fine.
So I don't need to be visible. It's okay. Following the overthrow of Ershad regime by widespread Gano Obhuthan popular uprising in 1990, the different aspects of the Liberation War started to reflect in different narratives and media with rigorous and more truthful accounts of the history. In this era, the issues of wartime violence against women and other war crimes had attracted huge public attention. Muktir Gaan was also accredited by many critics for the recognized public interest in the history of the Liberation War, leading to its dynamic depiction of the history and memory of the war. Collective memories are not a simple act of remembering, rather they are usable, quote, usable, determining belonging exclusively, solidarity and continuity, unquote, Zilazar. Similarly, Bangladeshi audience seem to employ the cinematic memories depicted in Muktir Gaan as usable to reconstruct their national identity in a changing socio-historical context of 1995, when Bangladesh also began to regain democracy following 15 years of autocratic rule. Following the film's initial screenings, people across all generations started responding spontaneously, which the directors couldn't possibly ignore. The Masood recorded their journey, the audience responses and interaction with the film while projecting it nationwide, along with narrating their accounts and experience of making the film. Eventually, another film is born throughout this process named Muktir Kotha, Wars of Freedom, made in 1999. Muktir Gaan is promoting widely the experience of the war among the contemporary Bangladesh audience still today through its continuous and diverse forms of screening, ranging from television screening to different outlets and in different online media. Despite having rare footage of 1971, which could generate a newness and stunning opening, Muktir Gaan doesn't begin with using Levin's footage. It starts with what is arguably the most important archival footage in the history of Bangladesh, the historical speech of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman delivered on 7th March 1971 at Racecourse Maidan in Dhaka before millions of people. This speech, regarded as the greatest rhetoric of Bangladesh that kindled a revolutionary zeal in Bengalis, leading them to fight for their country in 1971. Recently, on 30th October 2017, UNESCO recognized the speech as one of the world's significant documentary heritage and included it in the Memory of the War World International Register. It is alleged that throughout the 15-year period of military dictatorship, everything okay? I hear the echo. Anyway, it is alleged.
Just keep going.
Okay. It is alleged that throughout the 15-year period of military dictatorship from 1975 to 1990, the recorded versions of the speech, both in audio and audiovisual formats, were deliberately excluded by the government from any kind of media circulation. Muktir Gaan, however, in its opening scene of the pre-title sequence, includes the historical speech of Mujib as an audiovisual object of reprogramming the collective memory of Bangladeshis. As memory provides the very core of identity, here the Masouds include Mujib's speech to engage the audience in the act of collective remembrance of the liberation war and thereby in their identity construction. এবারের সংগ্রাম আমাদের মুক্তির সংগ্রাম, এবারের সংগ্রাম স্বাধীনতার সংগ্রাম. This struggle is for our emancipation, this struggle is for our independence. The epic two lines of Mujib's speech shown in the film evoke a sense of melody, a melody for freedom, which reminds us that the melodious journey of Muktir Gaan springs from this speech. It also offers a clear reference point that the starting timeline of the documentary film is 7th March 1971. Following the speech of Mujib and some found footage of war ravage and guerrilla actions, we also hear the historical declaration of independence delivered on 27th March 1971 from Kalurghat radio station by Major Ziaur Rahman of East Bengal Regiment. Zia declares, quote, "On behalf of our great national leader, the Supreme Commander of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, do hereby proclaim the independence of Bangladesh," unquote. Here, at the very beginning, like historians, the Masouds will place Muktir Gaan in the past, bringing forward intriguing subjects of the historical narrative of Bangladesh. Muktir Gaan reveals the direct experience and real journey of a cultural troupe during the war, their travel, their leisure, their onstage performance of the moving songs in refugee and training camps, their offstage activities, meetings with the freedom fighters, their solace and sympathy to the refugees are revealed in this film. The composition of the troupe with a mixture of young Bengali men and women from different religions and classes signifies its possession of a secular spirit of Bengali nationalism and a gender equal sensitivity. For many years, Bengal has a distinct and glorious cultural heritage that embraces humanist values. A shared and syncretic identity was developed among its inhabitants. The lyrics of a song which the troupe sing depicts the secular notion of Bengali identity as the main identity of the freedom fighters beyond their religious identities. The first three lines of the song are from Jessore, Khulna, Bogura, Pabna, Dhaka, Barisal, Noakhali, Beheli. Not Hindus, not Muslims. They are all Bengalis. The composition of the group also gives us the account of the contribution and participation of women in the war at different levels. We see women in this film primarily appearing with their self-identity as artists or voice soldiers, disregarding their recurrent represented gender roles of women found in war discourses of Bangladesh. We see 5 female singers in the group: Shaheen Mahmood, 2 sisters, Naila Zaman and Lubna Muriam, Sharmin Murshid and Lata Choudhury. They all cross the domestic domain of home confinement and become part of the mobile singing unit. Their participation carries the evidence of women's association in the nationalist struggle. Again, their journey can be compared with the migration experience of refugees caused by the horrors of the war. Indeed, like other refugees, they also have stories of loss and pain. Within the film, at the beginning, Tariq Ali, a member of the group and the narrator of this film, proclaims the group as refugees while narrating the suffering and victimization of the endless Bengali refugees pouring across the border. Noyonika Mukherjee, by highlighting the group members' middle-class background, recounts them as a different kind of refugee from millions of poor Bengali refugees. This difference is identified by Naeem Mohammed in some instances as visible awkwardness. The sole identification of refugees as poor and subaltern, thus separating the middle-class migration experience from the war-torn population, is in fact a product of processed knowledge through media circulation. Different international broadcast news agencies and individual projected the footage of the relentless procession of poor Bengali refugees running across the border, forming a spectacle of suffering during the war and in the subsequent years. Thus, the footage of the impoverished refugees became iconic synonymous with the Liberation War, restricting the memory of the war to this recurrent theme. The musical group's refugee experience, however, is a combination of forced and voluntary migration. The former is created as they are displaced from their home by their crossings of the border to seek refuge, and the latter is evident in their musical journey. Unlike other refugees, they have agency. Their agencies clearly exist by their effort to support and boost the morale of the refugees and the freedom fighters through their musical performances. On many occasions, Muktir Gaan thus challenges the dominant knowledge and ideology of Bangladeshi society. It particularly recounts women as subjects of history, knowledge, and actions and discourses disrupting conventional gender norms. Women in war discourses are commonly represented as passive and suffering figures whose thoughts and actions mostly revolve around the private or domestic spheres. They are portrayed in a way in war narratives as they do not possess any political awareness or nationalist concerns. In Muktir Gaan, we see different images of women that suggest their place and involvement in history both physically and intellectually. In a sequence, when the group stops for a while as the truck breaks down, we see that the male and female members are involved in different types of activities that oppose their traditional gender norms. Two male vocalists, Venu and Bipul Bhattacharya, are practicing ragas, while female members are reading English newspapers, sharing the news on the ravage of war and war fronts with each other. We see that the headlines, Free Bangladesh by December, appears in the backside of a newspaper read by Naila Zaman. Indeed, at that time of her reading the newspaper, it was a questionable projection of hope whether Bangladesh's independence was possible by December 1971. But when the film was first released in 1995, by that moment it became a historical truth that Bangladesh owed its independence on 16 December 1971. Thus, the framing of Naila Zaman with the newspaper headline displays her as a history narrator who reveals the viewpoint of the press of the Liberation War. We then see Naila and Charmin share different news on war ravage with each other, revealing the death of civilians in several regional districts. They then point out an article on Pakistani army entitled, "We are tired, we want women and wine." Here again, women reveal another historical truth about how the paid soldier of West Pakistan fought the war and their impulses behind it. In another sequence, when the troupe is being treated to a dinner in a refugee family after the musical performance, we hear a very crucial question from Naila Zaman addressed to the head of the refugee family. Have you planted crops in your field? As you left home, what will happen to the crops? While male members like Shapun Chaudhary are playing clownishly with children and others like Tariq Ali are busy querying a member of the family about a parrot, that moment Naila's question stands for production, a concern that is usually representative of the male sphere. Thus, with the inclusion of the direct experience of real historical women, Muktir Gaan on many occasions celebrates a modern depiction of Bengali women who had previously been mostly unarticulated. Even with some limitations and editorial manipulation, all pre-existing footage Muktir Gaan is assumed by Bangladeshis to be an objective recording of the Liberation War. It mostly uncovers the real journey of the musical troupe. We cannot, however, deny the fact that the performers were aware about the camera's presence, which to some extent altered their natural expression. Moreover, many offstage sequences were pre-rehearsed before they were shot by Levin. At the time of editing, the Masuds include a extensive archival and reenacted footage with the footage recorded by Levin to enhance sometimes the rhythm and meaning of the songs and sometimes to form broadly the narrative of 9-month-long liberation war, thus blurring the generic boundaries of documentary and fiction film. Muktir Gaan depicts the past in a semi-narrative way, representing it as an audiovisual collage of alternative history. During the 1990s, while the memory of the Liberation War was almost waning, the film's significant role in creating a critical emotional perception of the history of the Liberation War helps it to be regarded as a film dedicated to rescuing and revisioning history. The female images in Muktir Gaan depicting the direct and unarticulated expression of real women of history are redemptive. This is the first film in the cinematic history of Bangladesh which documents the different contribution of women in the national struggle in a creative way. Muktir Gaan, however, kindles further aspiration to explore the role of women in frontline battle actions, which it was not able to include. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahmida. That was a wonderful presentation.